Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Fight the spread and take a stand against coronavirus. Wear a mask in public. Stay at least 6 feet apart from others. And get tested. Join us and fight the spread. Visit scdhec.gov/COVID-19.
Day, and we honor and pay tribute to every person who served every branch of military. I'm Trey Taylor, and you're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. Again, it's brought to you by In It Together and the Diabetes Advisory Council. Today, we're focusing on the needs of veterans, and we've got a Tai Chi instructor and veteran Bill Patterson. He joins us along with veterans advocate Dr. Nicole Edwards and Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling. We'll talk to them next about veterans' needs on coping with COVID. Many parades and large observances have been postponed this year due to COVID. Still, Veterans Day tributes have taken place, including this one this morning in Columbia at the Busby Street Community Center. Mayor Benjamin and other council members, along with officials from Fort Jackson, the National Guard, and Veterans Affairs, attended the ceremony. Lexington School District 1 is reconsidering the timeline to bring back its older students. Last week, sixth graders started in-person learning 4 days per week, but with 19 active cases of COVID and almost 300 students with symptoms, Superintendent Dr. Greg Little says it's unclear if high schoolers will be able to return this semester. And 2 outdoor movies are being offered this week as part of the inaugural season of Columbia Concerts. The free events at the Columbia Speedway Entertainment Center feature 2 40-foot LED screens. The group says they'll bring quality and diverse outdoor entertainment to the area. For tickets to the free movies this Thursday and Friday, or for more information, log on to colaconcerts.com. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of times, dates, and locations for COVID and flu testings in and around South Carolina. You can check the scroll at the bottom of the screen throughout the show for updates. Also included at the bottom of the screen is information on offering a COVID screening at your event or in your neighborhood. Plus, the DHEC Care Line offers information on testing and if you need transportation to get a test. Now, speaking of transportation, if you live in Richland or Clarendon counties, paramedics in those counties are actually offering in-home COVID testing. Call 911 for more information. The SC Bar Association and SC Legal Services have collaborated to offer a free toll-free number and website for rental and mortgage assistance. You can see that information again at the bottom of the screen. And the City of Columbia has a 6-month payment plan for water bills and payment assistance up to 75%. Once again, if you need it. Now, Rashonda Pratt has dedicated an entire YouTube channel for virtual learning and virtual working. If you need some help, she's got it. So log on and subscribe to her YouTube channel. There are several companies that are hiring in South Carolina and in Columbia, including CarMax and Amazon. Again, check the screen for more information on hiring events at those 2 companies. Lastly, the City of Columbia is offering a free workshop coming up next Thursday. It's a virtual minority business opportunity conference. Now, they usually have a big conference every year. This year, they are doing a virtual conference, and check the screen for more information. If you are a minority business owner, contracts are opening very soon for the city of the Columbia Housing Authority. Columbia Housing Authority, as you know, is doing their renovations or refabs to the old Gonzales Gardens site, and they need you. Again, Tuesday, November 19th, 2020 at 12 noon, they're going to be doing a big event, and you want to be in attendance. They've got a $60 million contract, and you can get some of that very soon. Go on to the Tailor Made Productions page. We're streaming live from there. That's the home of Coping with COVID. We're also streaming live on YouTube. I would love for you to go over there also and hit like and subscribe. We're also streaming live on the In It Together page. So please stop by the In It Together page for not only coping with COVID, but updates from In It Together and the Diabetes Advisory Council. I'm Trey Taylor, and you are watching Coping with COVID. The In It Together and the Diabetes Advisory Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID, and it is Veterans Day. And friend of the show, board-certified family physician Dr. Nicole Edwards joins us. She's joined with Bill Patterson, the highly decorated retired Army major, received his BS at Appalachian State, his MS from Webster University, and a certification in gerontology from Midlands Tech. The certified Tai Chi instructor specializes in fall prevention and arthritis management and has over 17 years experience in stress management and meditation. Thank you both so much for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Trey. Always love to be here on Coping with COVID.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Bill, thank you for your service. I appreciate you. We appreciate you on this Veterans Day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you very much.
So I want to start.
That.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome. First of all, I want to talk about what specific medical challenges are there for veterans, Nicole. And I know, you're on this show because you work specifically in that area for veterans.
I do. I worked for about 10 years specifically for the VA in the compensation and pension department. And then when I opened up my own practice, Abundant Life Concierge, a large, probably about 85 to 90% of my patients are veterans. And so I have taken a lot of extra care and time to learn about veterans healthcare. And I'm actually petitioning right now to get veterans healthcare to be a subspecialty in medicine. You know, we have cardiology, endocrinology. There needs to be a subspecialty for veterans healthcare because there are some specific healthcare needs for veterans because the veterans were in different wars and had different hardships on their bodies and their minds. They have medical conditions and mental health conditions that are specific to veterans. Of course, we can all assume, the wear and tear on their bodies is apparent, right? And so we know that there's a lot of advanced degenerative arthritis. So, everybody gets arthritis as we get older. Like I tell some of my patients, that's a good thing because it means you're still alive because our joints will degenerate as we get older. But there's really not a reason why a 35 or 40-year-old young person should have advanced degenerative arthritis. A lot of that comes from the wear and tear. They're carrying 45 to 50-pound rucksacks and they're carrying heavy equipment. They're running, they're jumping off of equipment, they're landing. So they've got a lot of musculoskeletal conditions with their back, their knees, their feet, all of their joints, really. And then because of some of the exposures that they've had while they're in wars or at war, then they also can have other conditions. So we know like people, our older veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange, they can have a higher incidence of having diabetes. Some of our very older gentlemen, veterans in the Korean War, they can have problems with their lungs or with certain types of cancers. Some of our younger veterans who were in Operation Iraqi Freedom or Enduring Freedom over in the Gulf War, they can often have problems with fatigue, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, gastrointestinal conditions, lung conditions from breathing in the fire pits.
Wow.
So veterans should make sure that the doctors that they're going to are aware of these conditions that can be specifically from their service. Okay. And so, there's the last census showed about 18 million veterans in the United States, but we only have 170 VAs. And so you've got to kind of wonder, how can 170 VA hospitals take care of 18 million veterans? And really, honestly, right now, there's only about 9 million veterans that are signed up for VA healthcare coverage. So that means the other veterans are going to see doctors in the community. So you want to make sure that your doctor, if you're seeing a community care doctor, are aware of, that you've been in the military or that you've been at war, and that there are some specific conditions that you might have that everybody else doesn't have.
Yeah, Bill, what do you think about that? Making veterans health care as a veteran a specialized field? Bill? Oh, I think he's frozen. All right. So yeah, we're going to go back to, so what about any diseases, Nicole? Are there any diseases that vets may have more than others? I know that you specifically mentioned there are, several conditions.
A lot of them.
Bill, what
Nicole
do you
was
say?
talking about. And it's crucial for veterans. Yes.
Yeah, Bill, your connection is not good at all. So we really can't hear what you're saying. You're so delayed.
Say again, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
So other conditions that are specific for veterans that they need to be aware of, like I said, because of, and now I'm going to talk about some of our younger veterans and maybe even some that are still in, are things like things that honestly we wouldn't think of as even a problem.
I
Things
can
like
hear her. I
acid
just can't. The
reflux.
connection is not good.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you're chiming in so late. But can you say something now, Bill? What were you going to say? Yeah, it's so delayed.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, why don't you log off and come back on? And I'm going to ask Angela, your wife, who I know is watching because she just made a comment. Angela, can you come help Bill out? So we're going to go back to Nicole, Bill, and then maybe if you log on and log back off or either go to a different area, you may be able to get a little better connection.
Absolutely.
So what were you saying, Nicole?
I was saying that some of the conditions that even people who are not veterans would think of as trivial, things that we wouldn't go to the doctor for, things like acid reflux, things like headaches, things like problems sleeping. These are things that a lot of times veterans kind of write off as, you know, it's nothing, or I don't need to go and get this checked out. But sometimes that can be like, for example, the acid reflux, or having irregular bowel movements. So alternating back and forth between constipation and diarrhea, that's not normal. And sometimes that can be because of things that you were exposed to, like I said, from oil pits or from the oil fires, the burn pits. There is a burn pit registry that all veterans, if they have, you know, and most people think of, okay, burn pit, it means something lung, right? And there are those conditions as well, but there's other things as well. Like I said, chronic pain, and that's just not pain, just, you know, we all, like I said, we all get some arthritis, but this is pain, like widespread pain all over. If they're having headaches, now some people just chalk it up to, you know, it's just a headache, but you shouldn't be having daily headaches. Okay. So that could be, it could be tension headaches, it could be migraine headaches, it could be cluster headaches. We also do know that there are some conditions that are linked to some of the mental conditions that come from being in war or being deployed. So veterans that have PTSD, that went through traumatic experiences, they can have a higher propensity to having conditions such as problems sleeping. Of course, we assume that, you know, the anxiety, depression, the flashbacks, we all, you know, have heard of those, but then people aren't aware that, like I said, even your stomach issues can be linked to PTSD. We know that the headaches and the problem sleeping, all of those things can be linked to PTSD. What I always tell my veterans who come through is you need to be complaining about these things to a doctor somewhere. Now, even if you're not going to the VA, you still need to be documenting these conditions, because later on, if we're going to try to link those conditions to your service so that you can get possibly disability, or you can get what's called compensation and pension, if you haven't been having those things documented in your service records, in your medical records, then we don't know about them, right? And I think a lot of times most veterans, they kind of have this machismo attitude where, you know, like, oh, we got to man up, so we're not going to go complain about things. It's kind of sad, because that's how they were trained to not complain, especially people like my Marines. They often told me unless they were, a limb was falling off or unless they were bleeding out, they didn't go to the doctor. And they still kind of keep that going now. And the problem with that is that we're often finding things maybe too late, or things that are too far beyond. So I always urge my veterans, make sure that you are going to the doctor and you're even complaining about those things that some people would see as trivial. Like I said, bowel issues, allergies, right? If you have recurrent sinusitis, don't just pop something over the counter. That can be a condition that, you know, you might need to get seen for. You might have polyps in the nose, right? Which could be coming from all that dust and sand and things that you were breathing while you were over at war. Even sound conditions, if you're having ringing or a buzzing in your ears, those are some things that specifically affect veterans more than our civilians.
Right, right. We're talking to Dr. Nicole Edwards. It's a Veterans Day, and we've been focusing on veterans health. And Michelle Harris says November is National Diabetes Month. She says find out more about diabetes prevention and management programs at the In It Together website, inittogethersc.org. Thank you so much, Michelle. Well, let's talk a little bit about diabetes and the veteran. Nicole, is that, I mean, of course, we know anybody can get diabetes, but what is anything specifically specific to veterans?
Absolutely. Well, like I said before, we know that there are some things that certain veterans were exposed to that give them a higher risk of getting diabetes. So Agent Orange is a big one. So those would be our older veterans. Those would be people in their 60s, maybe 70s. But if they've got elevated blood sugars, then that could be coming from being exposed to Agent Orange. We also know, though, however, that stress in general increases our cortisol levels. Cortisol actually causes insulin resistance. Okay, so the more stress you're under, the more anxiety, depression, flashbacks, PTSD you have a higher level of that cortisol, and so you actually have a higher chance of having insulin resistance, which of course leads to diabetes.
Yeah, I think we've got Bill back, and we're going to try to see if we can get him back on.
There he is.
That's my lovely wife. She's my
Your
my
IT.
Yeah. So Bill, can you kind of tell us what your concerns are for veterans? I mean, you are a veteran. You did serve. You had a great military career. Can you tell me from your standpoint, from the veteran standpoint, some of the things that you feel like should be focused on as far as veterans' health?
I think the number one thing is our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
It is critical that veterans understand because of the COVID that it's normal if you have increased feelings of loneliness, depression, stress, anxiety. All that's normal. All we gotta do is be able to stay connected and stay informed.
Yeah. So what as services? I mean, I know, Nicole, that you mentioned, obviously, the VA is available, but, you said something so interesting. There are far more veterans than there are veterans hospitals. So what are some of the other services that veterans can take advantage of? Both you, Nicole, and Bill. Bill, you want to chime in?
Yes. The VA, Dorm VA, offer free Tai Chi classes. Also, at the Big Red Barn Retreat in Blythewood, they offer therapeutic resources for veterans, especially for veterans with PTSD. And also, I teach Tai Chi. They can see you.
But no, it's okay, Bill. You're the only one worried about it.
I also teach Tai Chi at the Laurie Center, which is downtown, and at Palmetto Yoga and Reiki Center, which is in Northeast Columbia. And Tai Chi is very good for veterans because we put a lot of emphasis on self-care. We want to make sure that veterans understand it's important that we take care of ourselves.
Right. And I wanted to get a little bit into that more in the next segment when we bring Tina in, because with No Shame Counseling, she not only does some traditional things, but she does some non-traditional things too. So I really wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about Tai Chi and how it is really advantageous for veterans. So I definitely want to talk about that a little bit more. But what do you think, Nicole? What, and Bill made a great point that he feels like the mental health is more important than anything. And I guess the thing is, because if your mental health isn't in order, you can't take care of anything else.
Well, Trey, one of my favorite sayings is that we are one being, but we're made of three parts: mind, body, and spirit. So you can't be whole person healthy unless you attend to all three of those parts. So if we are mentally ill or mentally not well, or if we have some sort of mental condition or disease, it will spill over into our physical, right? And then same thing, if our physical bodies are not well, then that spills over into our mental health. That's why I love things like Tai Chi, Bill, because it's a balance between your mental health and your physical health. So I love that. We do need to, I agree with you that veterans' mental health is oftentimes very, very, very important. But again, because they all kind of spill over into each other, we have to address whole person health. Correct. Veterans' mental health is another place where a lot of times they're not reaching out. Okay, I talked about the medical conditions that they're not reaching out about, but they're also not reaching out about their mental health. So they're not going to seek help about, problems sleeping, about a short temper, about feeling anxious, about having to, check the windows 10 times before they go to bed, or check the locks, 7 times in a certain order, or taking a different route home every day from work because, to make sure that no one's following them. These are some signs that there might be some mental conditions that we need to address. Depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, insomnia. These are all conditions that lots of veterans have, maybe more so than our civilian counterparts. And just like you said, Bill, it is so during COVID, it's almost like it has heightened those feelings. Right. And so one of the main things that I tell my veterans is you've got to reach out to someone, to your civilian doctor, to your VA doctor. I love the fact now that the VA has the instant messaging where you can, you don't have to just call your doctor anymore at the VA. Now you can send your doctor a message through the message portal. The other good thing about that messaging portal is that you're not relying on the nurse to relay what you're saying is the problem. You can type it up yourself, and that actually goes into your medical record.
Oh, that's
I don't
great.
know if you've ever gone to the doctor and you give them this long list of things and they write one little sentence, right? Because they might not be a great scribe, but with this messaging portal, you're able to put down your specific symptoms, your specific problems, and then they can send you a message back, either saying, okay, we probably need to make an appointment to handle that, or to send that further, or we can refer you somewhere, or we can go ahead. And sometimes if they can address things right there through the messaging portal. Real quick too, there also are a whole lot of other programs that are great that are offered through the VA, programs such as, he was talking about Tai Chi, but there's even things like alternative processes and management for pain. So they do things like acupuncture now. There's weight loss programs. There are dietitians. There are all kinds of different programs that the VA is employing now. They're even, like I said, getting into the alternative fields of medicine, more integrative medicine, which I love because it's not always about throwing a pill at you, right? And sometimes the problem is when you're going, some veterans, a lot of them actually, they go to the VA for some things, and then some of them are also going to the civilian doctor, and a lot of times one doesn't know what the other is doing. So you need to make sure that all of your doctors know what's going on, and that even if you are seeing a civilian, that they're still sending those records to the VA so that the VA docs are aware of what's going on, and so that we don't get overlapping of medicine. My biggest pet peeve is to see people, namely my veterans, who are getting treated for a problem that was caused as a side effect from a medicine, right? And so you might have a lot of pain. So they're giving you things like ibuprofen or naproxen, not understanding that ibuprofen can eat away at the lining of your stomach and cause acid reflux. So then I see veterans, almost every single veteran I see has got some kind of Prilosec or omeprazole or Nexium on their medication list. And a lot of times I'm like, it's right underneath ibuprofen. And I'm like, if we just stop the ibuprofen, then we might not need the omeprazole, right? And so a lot of times what you need to do, veterans, is make sure that you're seeing that your doctors are going through your medications and that they're trying to get rid of some of the medications that may have side effects. And again, addressing you as a whole person to make sure that there's not what we call polypharmacy going on.
Right. Wow. Wow. Coping with COVID and In It Together presents Wellness Wednesday from the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina. We are paying tribute to all veterans today on this Veterans Day and talking about veterans' health. Dr. Nicole Edwards has joined us. Also, Bill Patterson, who is a highly decorated vet, has also joined us. And Bill, are you kind of in agreement with some of the things that Dr. Nicole has said? And I go to you because you're living it.
Yes, I totally agree with everything that she said. The only thing I would want to add is VA has many mental health apps that are available to veterans, like Mood Coach is an app, COVID Coach, and Mindfulness Coach. And those are apps that veterans can use also. And also,
there's a PTSD coach also. I
correct.
just learned about that one.
Correct. Also, veterans has at their disposal VA's novel coronavirus webpage. They also have a VA coronavirus frequent asked questions. And the CDC has a fantastic webpage called CDC's coronavirus webpage. So there are stuff out there for us. It's just that we got to be informed in order to get that information.
Right.
But can I just say one thing real quick?
Sure.
I since you brought up COVID, Bill, I know we did a show before where we talked with a veteran that had COVID, but I love the VA's response to coronavirus. And when a veteran tests positive, they immediately get 3 times a day calls from a nurse. They're doing monitoring and temperature checks and medications and making sure that you have all of the supplements that you need and all the things that you need, and they're checking on you. And I love that fact. We want to make sure too that I know a lot of veterans, because again, 18 million veterans or 9 million veterans signed up for 170 VAs, that most veterans are only going to see their VA doctor maybe once, maybe twice a year if you've got some chronic conditions. So because of that, you're not sometimes getting the supplements and the vitamins and things that you need. And right now with COVID going on, we got to make sure. There was actually an article that just came out this past weekend that talked about the importance of vitamin D for immune health and increasing our immune health, to help fight against COVID. And so we want to make sure veterans, if you're only going to see your doctor once a year, that maybe you should check in and make sure, hey, are there any other vitamins or are there any supplements that I need to be taking to help boost my immune system so that I'm not at an increased risk of COVID. Now, we also know that because veterans have more medical conditions like diabetes, hypertension, thyroid conditions, that they are actually at an increased risk for COVID and having adverse effects to COVID. So we want to make sure veterans, again, if you haven't seen your doctor all year, go ahead and shoot them a message and ask them, is there anything else I need to be taking? Any other follow-ups I need to be doing?
That's Dr. Nicole Edwards. Bill Patterson is also with us. Coming up, we're going to be joined by Tina Phillips with No Shame Counseling, and we'll continue the conversation and talk a little bit about some alternative methods of coping, so to speak, with veterans issues. And also we'll talk about, as Bill and Nicole said, about the mental health piece. We'll be rejoined with Tina Phillips coming up next on Coping with COVID. In It Together and the Diabetes Advisory Council present Wellness Wednesday on Coping with COVID every Wednesday.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Tailor.
People will be able to look 100 years from now. They will know how we got over. This makes it even more important that we shine this light.
Part of it also wasn't the fact that we couldn't have the physical graduation, but I also couldn't celebrate with my family out of town.
For me, I feel like this is a new normal. This is not going away anytime soon, I don't think.
Anything that's happened before can happen again. And the same thing is at play with this virus.
We are no longer in a building, and we've talked about church being, with us, in us.
Have you traveled abroad late in the past 6 months? We were trying to trace it back as early as November.
Palmetto Media Connections wants to connect with you. Find and like us on Facebook and a chance to win dinner for a family of 10 for the Thanksgiving holidays. Provided by licensed caterer Deacon Eddie Green of Catering and Beyond, 201 Columbia Mall Boulevard, 803-567-3986. Connect with us for a chance to win dinner for a family of 10. Sponsored by Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday from the Diabetes Advisory Council. It's Veterans Day, and we're talking about veterans care. You may remember Tina Phillips. She's a friend to the show. She's been with us several times with a No Shame Counseling. She's joined us before. We're going to bring Bill Patterson back in. Also, Dr. Nicole Edwards rejoins us also, and we are going to continue our conversation about veterans health on this Veterans Day. Tina, thank you guys so much for joining us again. I appreciate you. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we hear a lot about PTSD. I mean, it's one of those terms that are kind of thrown around. Can you tell us exactly what that is and what vets can do to move through it?
Yeah, so basically when you think about the brain and how our brain works, there are some things that are just outside of our control, right? And so there are different parts of our brain. If you think about it, it's almost kind of like a fist. And so we have our upstairs brain, which is our mammalian brain. As mammals, is how we operate. We use logic, we use reason, all those other things. Well, on the inside, when you're thinking about things like the hippocampus and the amygdala, all those sorts of things, this is our downstairs brain. And this is where we do things based off of instinct. And so our brain is typically like this. And so we usually operate from the upstairs brain. But what happens is when we're traumatized and those memories, those old things that are triggered for us, our brain basically goes, ah, just like that. This is why we say things like, oh, she flipped her lid, or he blew his top. That is not just a euphemism or a statement that someone made. That's really what happens. We really do blow our tops, right?
Wow.
So we're not using our logic anymore. Now we're using instinct, and instinct will tell us to do one of three things: fight, flight, or freeze. Okay. And you really don't even get to control what your instinct tells you to do in that moment when you're traumatized. So I worked with sexual assault survivors for a long time. Typically, most sexual assault survivors during that moment, they freeze, right? So this is why we say, well, why didn't you run? Why didn't you fight?
Right.
No control over how I respond or react when I'm triggered. What does trauma look like? Anytime that we are afraid that we're going to be seriously hurt, that we're going to be injured, or we're going to die. Or we also have what's called vicarious trauma or secondary trauma, which is like, I heard about someone I love that just got diagnosed with a disease, or I just found out someone I love died, right? So you have both forms of trauma. It's very individualized though. So what's traumatic for me may not be traumatic for the next person, and vice versa. And so what we do when we're talking about PTSD, so this is our trauma response here. We're going down 20, all gas, no brakes. This is where you're trying to tell people, calm down, and they're just getting more and more amped up. Nope. So what usually happens, our brain is supposed to, after we calm down, you ever been chased by a dog or something, and once you're out of the danger zone, typically what happens is you catch your breath, and then there's a, whoo, girl, that was scary. Wasn't that something? Right? So what's happening in that moment is your brain is coming right back to here. Well, what happens with PTSD is we stay here. Or maybe we only come back to here. And so what that means is this right here, this fight, flight, or freeze is very easily accessible. So now things that really aren't a threat, we view them as such. So that may mean I hear a loud noise and I'm, oh no, because I think it could mean I'm going to be hurt or killed, or someone else could be hurt or killed, right? So we stay in this state of hyper arousal. And so what we're doing with PTSD treatment, so basically you're stuck. We call these stuck points, right? And it's all about how you believe about things, what you believe about things, how you think about things, because your beliefs affect your thoughts, which affect your feelings, which affect your behavior or your words. So what we're doing here at No Shame, we have a group currently right now for Black male veterans who have PTSD, but we have a group starting in January for their spouses, because a lot of times what happens is you can end up getting PTSD from vicarious trauma or secondary trauma because you're dealing with their PTSD.
Yeah, you sharing with somebody else's PTSD. Yeah.
Right?
And that causes PTSD.
It's a whole thing. You jumping, now I'm jumping, dag on it.
Wow.
Or you're exploding, and so now I'm scared.
Yeah.
So it turns into a whole family issue, and it turns into a whole system issue, because typically what we're seeing is when we're doing exams and working with veterans, they're having problems at work. They're not able to get along with their friends anymore. I've seen veterans who've lost jobs or who've not been able to get out of bed to go to work. So this becomes an every domain in life issue. And it's a challenge. And so what we are doing in therapy is we are working to move beyond the stuck point to kind of help get that brain back to a place where we're calming down again, so we can start using our upstairs brain instead of our downstairs brain, or our reptilian brain.
Yeah, that's Tina Phillips with a No Shame Counseling, and we're going to be rejoined by Bill Patterson. He comes back in, as you've heard before. He's a highly decorated retired Army major. He's president and CEO of Peace and Patience Group, where he works to improve the quality of life for veterans and seniors through stress reduction, holistic wellness, and sound mindfulness teaching. So, Bill, how do you handle some of your vets as far as stress management?
Well, the one thing that I do is I let them know this is a safe place to come to. If there's anything you want to talk about, we can talk about. And whenever we do any exercises, I always tell them, do the very best that you can do. My goal is to make sure that what information I'm putting out to them, it is good for them and it will not create any stress for them. The last thing that they need is more stress.
Right.
So I always tell them, hey, you listen to your body and your body will tell you what to do, and always stay within your own range of motion.
Right. You mentioned, your body will tell you what to do. I want to piggyback on something Nicole said, but first I want to ask you, Bill, do you think the fact that you are also a veteran helps bring the stress level down for veterans to come and recognize you as a safe place?
Sure. Definitely. Because there's not too many veterans doing Tai Chi, teaching Tai Chi. And I'm one of the few. And a lot of my demographics in my class are a lot of women. Now, when I get males in my class, hey, I am all for that. Because it tells me that we've finally got it. They are trying to take care of their health. So I'm excited whenever I get males into my class.
Nicole, you mentioned that, we're mind, body, and spirit. So can you actually help your medical problems by handling your emotional issues?
Absolutely. So you have to remember that mental health is oftentimes a imbalance in your serotonin levels, your dopamine levels, your norepinephrine levels, those brain chemicals, right? So just like we talked about before, we don't fault people for having diabetes because their insulin levels are off. We shouldn't look at mental health conditions as a sign of weakness either, because again, it's an imbalance in your hormones in your brain. So absolutely, by addressing your mental health, it can actually help to improve your physical health. We have seen people who address their mental health, their chronic pain seems to improve. Their sleeping seems to improve. Their weight can improve. So absolutely. So for example, when patients come to see me, not just for, if they come to see me for just wellness and weight loss, right? I'm getting a whole person history, including their mental health conditions. And we address diet, we address exercise, and we address mental health. So a lot of those patients who are here for weight loss and wellness, I'm sending down the hall to Miss Tina because let's get your mind right, because that is a big factor in your whole person health. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's Dr. Nicole Edwards. Coping with COVID and In It Together presents Wellness Wednesday from the Diabetes Advisory Council. I want to remind you that information about diabetes prevention programs are scrolling at the bottom of the screen throughout the show. So if you need the help, please make sure that you contact the information that is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. I want to say hi to Crystal Hill. Thank you so much for joining us. She says, shouts out her dad, saying you're her hero, Bill, and, #veteran, and
That's
everyone
my
else.
heart.
Yeah. And everyone else who is watching, please continue to post and share this out, especially on this Veterans Day, so that we can try to get this information out to those who absolutely positively need it. Danielle Lake says, thank you, sir, for your service and for your sacrifice. Angela Carr Patterson says, much needed conversation. And Crystal again says, great information, ladies. So let's talk about some things people can do to control their emotions and stress. I want to go to you first, Tina, and then to you, Bill.
The possibilities really are endless. And so what works for me may not work for the next person. But one of the very first things that I think you've got to do is start checking in with yourself. One of the things that trauma does is it basically is a hand that comes around your throat and it disconnects your brain from your body. So a lot of times veterans have a hard time even being able to articulate, or survivors of trauma have a hard time being able to articulate what they feel in their body. So one of the things that you can do is things like yoga or Tai Chi, or even coming to Reiki. These are all very connecting practices that will help to reestablish the connection between the brain and body. And so another thing that you can do, like meditation, praying. So even bringing in that spiritual component in that context. When I first started practicing Reiki, Dr. Edwards actually sat in on a session and was able to watch and track the difference in someone's breathing, in how their bodies physically reacted, their blood pressure afterwards. And there was a significant increase in a positive direction just from laying still on a table for a little while, getting things back in balance. And once you start doing that, exercise is another great thing to do to get some of those, get your brain really working, get some endorphins flowing. Talk therapy, of course, is very helpful. Art therapy is also very helpful. Any type of movement, really, anything that can externalize what we are feeling inside is very helpful. Things like playing with your dog or your cat, if you have a pet, or your child. There's a reason that people who have animals actually tend to live longer than people who don't. It's a stress reducer, right? It helps to relieve stress. So you have to find out, though, what works for you. Also, being mindful of your diet. I had that conversation with a client today. You have to be mindful of what you put in your body. I believe that even foods have a vibration. So we have to be careful about what we're putting into our bodies as well. So there are the possibilities are really endless. You have to find what works for you. And you can't do that if you are not in tune with you. So you got to check in with you and center yourself. So for this time, in this moment, I can't be distracted with what anybody else needs or what anybody else is doing. This is my time to check in with me. So maybe journaling, all of these things are possibilities that you can do to start the healing process. And it is a process. It's not an overnight thing. It takes time.
I want to come back to you in a minute, Tina, about food and how food can help or hurt. And then I want you to break down Reiki. But before we ask you that, because, these are things that I think people are not as familiar with. I think exercise, people know, because you hear it a lot. If you exercise, that's a good stress reliever. Even the pet therapy, and a pet, I think in my case, will be great unless you have two kids. But I digress. You got to clean up poop from everywhere. But so I do want to come back to that. But Bill, tell us about Tai Chi. What exactly is it for those people who don't know?
Tai Chi is the best thing since sliced bread. It is easy, it is fun, and it's different. Tai Chi is a martial arts that stresses the integration of your mind, body, and spirit. We put a lot of emphasis on doing things slow, soft, and gentle. You actually use more muscles, tendons, and ligaments if you go slow versus fast. And Tai Chi is a great stress reducer, and it's very good for chronic pain. When I got out of the military, I had a very bad back. There would be some days when I couldn't even get up out of the bed. My back hurt so much. And I had to find something that worked for me. I tried yoga, I tried Zumba, I tried different things. And it wasn't until Tai Chi was a good fit for me. And I love it. And that's why I teach it so much. And that's why I'm trying my best to teach as many people as I can, inform so many people as I can about the benefits of Tai Chi.
Right. Can I just say something real quick, Trey?
Yeah.
I wanted to throw in there because Miss Tina and Bill have both said you have to find what works for you. And I think in general, when it comes to everything in life, but especially our mental health care, our physical health care, even the way we work out or what type of workout we do, again, you have to find what works for you. Every exercise is not for every patient. Every medication is not for every patient. That's why there's multiple different types of blood pressure medicines. We have to find the one that works for you. So don't just try one and then say, oh, but nothing works. No, we might have to try something else. Same thing. If Zumba doesn't work, we might have to try Tai Chi. If Tai Chi doesn't work, we might have to try yoga. Same thing when it comes to your providers. All right. So if you don't feel like you can open up to your doctor, find another one. We won't hold it against you. Right. If you don't feel like you can open up with your therapist, I get that a lot. People are like, I just feel like I can't really talk to them. Find another one. Right. And so we get a lot of that. And then sometimes you got to find somebody that you feel like you can relate to. So we, like Ms. Tina was saying, we have a large population of African-American males and their wives who come to us to No Shame and to Abundant Life for care because, again, they feel comfortable with us because we look like them or they look like us. Right. And so you have to find what works for you in terms of your treatment, in terms of your provider, in terms of your exercise, in terms of medication, even in terms of supplements and health supplements and vitamins that you take. Again, there are multiple ones. You got to find what works specifically for you.
Yeah. Tina, can you talk a little bit about Reiki?
Yeah, sure. So Reiki is it's basically an energy healing and balancing. So when you think about it, I know Black folks, we love going to church most of the time. And so when you think about what's happening in that time frame, if you've ever gone up to the altar at the end and someone has come to pray for you and they lay hands on you, they typically lay hands in specific areas. It's typically on the forehead, on the chest. Sometimes they talk about the crown of the head, or they touch your stomach, or even on your back. Those are all chakra zones. And typically that's not a word that we tend to use in church, but those are actually chakra zones, right? So your third eye, your intuition, spirit, all of those things is represented here. Okay. Then you have your throat, you have your heart, and then you have your solar plexus, your sacral, and then your root. And so what we are doing is getting those things in balance. And so a lot of times things like trauma, things like unresolved like health conditions, all of those things, they begin manifesting in us. And a lot of times it's a result of unbalanced chakra zones, right? So Reiki, what we're doing, it's a balancing of the mind, body, and spirit. And so we are working through each of those spaces. So basically, I hold my hands over those areas, and we are just directing your own energy to that specific chakra zone in the hopes that it will become more balanced and it will become more flowing in that nice clockwise circle that we're looking for. A lot of people's are like this, or they're like this, and then sometimes I see them completely frozen. Right. So that's what we're doing in Reiki. It is a widely accepted practice. And if you think about it, or if we look at it, most children's hospitals around the United States now have a Reiki professional on staff for a reason. Yeah, science even it endorses this, just like it endorses Reiki, just like it endorses Tai Chi and yoga, all of those sorts of things. They're very helpful in helping to get our bodies back in line. And a lot of us don't even realize that we have not, craniosacral therapy is amazing too. There's a lady here who does that in town. A lot of times we don't realize that we've been traumatized because it was normal. Right. So it was normal that my dad beat me all the time when I was little. This is what I hear from veterans a lot. It was normal that, I got yelled at and called stupid.
Because that was their reality. That was their reality.
Yeah. And it was normal. So they don't even realize, though, that somebody said buried wounds. And I said, they don't even realize that it's a wound. I'm going to tell you, it's a lot of stuff. We can't heal it because we won't even say that it hurt.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. And that's, when both you and Nicole were saying, Dr. Edwards were saying, you've got to be in tune. That's a process in itself. You got to first realize you out of tune to then make sure you try to get in tune and then to really come to terms with a lot of this stuff, which is oftentimes, as you said, buried from the past, like Angela Carr Patterson is saying, thank you for watching. That's kind of unburying some stuff from the past that was hurtful, that was shameful, that you don't really, you don't want to deal with it, kind of out of sight, out of mind. But, for true healing, and here's the thing, and as Nicole says, she says this all the time, for true healing, mentally, physically, emotional, everything, you've got to get to the bottom of what's going on with you. Want to say hi to Marvell Williams Mendenhall. She says, thanks for the great information. She says diabetes runs in her family. I do want to, before we close, talk a little bit about diabetes and some of these alternative methods, as you were talking about. And Tina, you talked about food being a healer. And we know food is, a big culprit in diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I am a former diabetic. And so one of the things that I had to seriously start looking at, even as I was working to beat diabetes, it was one of the things, just like a lot of things in life, even with trauma, I did not cause it, right? It runs in my family. I don't know how it skipped over all my siblings and just landed on me, but it did. I didn't cause it, but it became my responsibility to cure it.
Yes.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I had to fix that thing. So I had to really become aware of what I was putting into my body. So doing things like cutting out the carbonation, cutting out juice, getting out exercising, making sure I was putting living things into my body. Like I said, everything has a vibration.
Vegetables,
putting living things into your body. I cut out red meat, which I know that's controversial for some people. That's fine. But that's what I had to do on my journey. And I went from having an A1C of, I believe, 9.8 to now I'm down to 4.6. So I am no longer diabetic. And I did that through diet and exercise. Thank you. And I also did that through lots of counseling and EMDR. The type of work that I've done, and historically, I've always been a social worker. I've identified kids' bodies. I've done all those sorts of things. My stress levels, those cortisol levels, like Dr. Edwards was talking about, were through the roof. Right. So I had to make sure that I was going in and taking care of my mental health too. So I got EMDR done. I was seeing a therapist regularly. I got Reiki, which is how I ended up doing Reiki. So there were a lot of things that I had to do from all different domains. What I ate, what I watched, who I allowed in my life.
Wow.
You have to look at it. If you have toxic connections, they will breed toxicity in your body. That's how this works. So I had to take a step back and look at me and sit with me and sit in my own truth and say, I'm not dying early.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, I don't want my leg cut off. Like, I'm going to have to work on through this. So I did. So when I was on them 2 shots a day or 2 shots a week, plus I was on oral medication, that was my life from 2011 to 2018.
Yeah.
So I had to let go.
Yeah. Before we leave, I want to talk a little bit about family connections and because one of you, mentioned that, if you're dealing with a person with PTSD, you can get PTSD. So how can, what do families need to know and need to do? And Bill, I'll ask you this question as far as dealing with a veteran, or what is some advice you give to families? Because the thing about it is, regardless of what our issue is, our situation is, whether it was health or mental, physical, emotional, everybody's got to be on board with the remedy, with the cure, with the healing. Everybody's got to be in it 100%.
One thing I would suggest, be patient with the people that you're working with. People have their good days and they have their bad days.
Right.
Just be patient, be there for them, and be positive. Tell them you're doing a great job. I appreciate what you're doing. And that goes a long way.
Right, right. Either one of you ladies want to chime in?
I think it's mostly about having a good understanding. So if psychoeducation is so important, so you as family, even for the kids, we have to have some real clear conversations on an age appropriate level about why is mom staying in bed for 2 days? We have to have these conversations. And what can I do? So I usually encourage my clients, let's create a plan that involves your family and involves your support system when you're not in a space of explosion, when you're not in a space of deep depression or anxiety, for when you do get there, what it is you need in that time. So it's all about providing education to the family and also pulling them in so that they're a part of the team. And if they need services, providing that service for them as well.
Right. Tina Phillips with a No Shame Counseling, Reiki, and consultation. Their motto is be kind to yourself. Thank you so much, beautiful, for joining us. Of course, Dr. Nicole Edwards, board certified general practitioner with Abundant Life Concierge Services, Abundant CNT. You can see the email, the website there for her veterans services. She has several veteran services specifically for veterans. And of course, Bill Patterson, there's his contact information. And Bill, where are you teaching Tai Chi?
I teach Tai Chi at the Lori Center, which is downtown Columbia, at the Big Red Barn, which is in Blythewood, and also at the Palmetto Reiki and Yoga Center, which is in Northeast Columbia.
All right. You see his information there. If you want more information about Bill and about his Peace and Patience group and about his Tai Chi, please contact him. Please contact Nicole if you are a veteran or not a veteran and need a good physician. She is accepting patients. And like I said, she specifically works with veterans. And then, of course, Tina Phillips. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for joining us today on Coping with COVID. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have a story that could help someone cope with COVID, please go to the Tailor Made production page on Facebook and inbox me. I would love to talk to you about featuring your story on Coping with COVID. If you have a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwithtreytaylor@gmail.com. That's copingwithtreytaylor@gmail.com. I would love for you to be a proud sponsor of Coping with COVID, just like DHEC, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, also Palmetto Media Connections and Agape Counseling and Training Center, and of course, In It Together. Now, tomorrow, we'll talk to Darian McLeod and Kevin Shoemaker. They have a brand new television show that talks about politics. That's coming up tomorrow on Coping with COVID. Faith Friday, we're going to talk to Minister Erica Lakin. So get ready to get inspired and motivated for Faith Friday. And then on Saturday, we're going to talk to a couple that met on social media in September of this year, and they got married in October of this year. That's right, 30 days. They met and married. We're going to talk to them and hear about their story. That's this Saturday on Coping with COVID. As always, I leave you with a reading from Jesus Calling. Bill's already gone. I was going to ask him to close us out with maybe some words that may have helped him through. Angela wants to know. Well, Angela, I'll hook you up with Dr. Nicole so that you and she can talk. She also says, "Great job, Bill." Here is Jesus Calling for today, which is Veterans Day. Do not let any set of circumstances intimidate you. Man, that's good. The more challenging your day, the more of my power I place at your disposal. This is Jesus talking. You seem to think that I empower you equally each day, but that's not so. Your tendency upon awakening is to assess the difficulties ahead of you, measuring them against your average strength. This is an exercise in unreality. I know what each of your days will contain, and I empower you accordingly. The degree to which I strengthen you on a given day is based mainly on two variables: the difficulty of your circumstances and your willingness to depend on me for help. Try to view challenging days as opportunities to receive more of my power. Look to me for all that you need and watch and see what I will do. Jesus says, as your day comes, so shall your strength be. That's your Jesus Calling for today, November 11th, Veterans Day. Thank you so much for joining us on Coping with COVID. Until the next time, I wish you peace and abundant blessings. And I encourage you to please, please, please wear your mask over your nose and under your chin. Happy Veterans Day. Blessings to all of those who served in the armed forces.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.